It's a little bit different sermon, I think, this morning. I told Tony, how many times can you talk about mother and just come up with something new? How many times? But the Lord really had already prepared me to talk about faith. And I just thought that's a different avenue. But then he went on to say to me, I want you to talk about your faith. So, title of my sermon is Have a Little Faith. And I'm going to start out with Hebrews 11:6 that says, and without faith, it is impossible. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. And I was thinking about that a little bit earlier today. I was just like, Lord, we literally have to have faith to get out of bed. I have to have faith to breathe. I mean, we don't think about it in that aspect, but if I do, I realize that it is so, that to take a step out of our home, to go to our jobs, to raise children, whatever it is a step of faith. It's a measure of faith that we have to have, because we just assume we're going to have it. I assume I'm going to have that breath. I'm going to assume that I'm going to wake up tomorrow. And so it takes a step of faith to do that. And I want you to just think about that word right there, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. I'm going to come back to that in a little while, but let that stick in your brain here a little bit. I wasn't raised in church. My parents did not go to church. My dad was mad at God for reasons that I'm not going to go into here today. But I know that my mom loved the Lord, but she didn't talk about him a lot. I would hear her sing about him sometimes, but she would take my sister and I to Vacation Bible School or to church, but she dropped us off and she never came in. And I'm saying that to say this. I don't remember when I didn't know him. And I don't know how that is. I feel like as far back as my memories can go, age 4 maybe, I remember talking to God. I remember singing to him. I remember asking him for things. I remember just always feeling like he was right here. And no matter what I needed, no matter what I was going through, and sometimes it was really, really, really hard times, he was always there. And I can't explain to you, like, no one introduced me. No one said, like my mama didn't say to me, you know, let me tell you about Jesus and what he means to you or what he means to me or any of that. It just never came up in conversation. But I knew him. He was always there. Now I'm going to fast forward. Going to date myself real good here. 1986. I remember being in my apartment in Idabel, Oklahoma. That's where I'm from. Where's my guy, Boomer Sooner? Yay! There we are. Us Okies in here. 1986. I was in my apartment. I was recently divorced with 2 little boys. And I remember sitting on the floor in that apartment. And I remember looking out the window. I was in my bedroom. I remember everything specifically. And the curtains were open, and there was a big, big, big full moon. And I remember just laying before the Lord and saying, how am I here? How am I here at this age, 28 years old? How am I here, divorced with 2 children, having no direction in my life? How did I get to this place, Lord? And what is my direction? I need you now more than ever. I need you to tell me, where do I go from here? Because I feel so disconnected, and I feel so not knowing where to go. What is my next move? I feel lost, Lord. And the Lord spoke to me, as he always did. And he said, you're going to move to South Carolina. That's where you're going to meet your husband. He's going to have dark hair. He did one time. He's going to have dark hair. and he will be a man of God. And so that was going to take a real big leap of faith, because South Carolina was halfway across the United States from me. And here I had no family. I had some friends, because my first husband, actually, his parents were from here. Very good people. They were so good to me. And they remained a good part of my life even after my first husband, I got divorced. He left. Won't go into that either. But anyway, that was going to take a huge leap of faith. And I was like, God, but I'm going to go, and where am I going to live? What am I going to do for a job? And the Lord said, just go. Just go. So I came. I took some time off from work, and I flew out here. And in 1 week, I had a job, and I had a place to live. In 1 week. And so I went back home and got my U-Haul, gathered up my little chickies, and my mom supported me the whole time, and I came out here. You know, I just want to say this because I feel like that it's important to interject right here about faith. It's your job to have faith for whatever it is that you're believing God for. And it's God's job to make it come to fruition, whatever you're asking him for. But you don't get to choose how, and you don't get to choose when. Right? Right? So that was a pretty big step of faith for a 28-year-old to take. But I believe so much in hearing the Lord and knowing that he would speak, that he always spoke to me, and I could trust him. I could trust the Lord. Like I said, since I was a small child. And I was here for about a year. I was starting to kind of say, I don't think this is going to happen. I think I've messed up. I think I didn't hear the Lord. I think a lot of things are going awry here, because it's a year later. And I met Tony. Boy, we found out real fast that we were a couple of wounded people, a couple of wounded souls. We had, both of us at that time had about as much faith as a three-legged chair. And we were both non-trusting because of hurt in our life. And even that, I started to question. Tony's not the one. I don't think this is right. I don't know. I'm messing up. But we kept pursuing the relationship. There's so many times that we look at our lives and say, God's left us. But truly, it's in the desert moments, and that's where Tony and I were. We were in a desert place, both of us in our lives, that if we realize it and we look back and we evaluate, we'll see that really what God is doing is reconstructing us into stronger, more purposeful, resilient versions of ourselves. And that's what God was doing with us. He was stripping away pride, and he was stripping away unhealthy attachments and weak foundations. And maybe if you're there now, maybe if you're in that place that's kind of a desert place, it might be a sign for you to stop and look and say, God, what are you trying to do in me here in this time and in this moment? Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean to your own understanding. I really couldn't understand it. At that time, it seemed like things were going good. It seemed like then Tony and I were here. We were not. I mean, I know I was a lot. He was taking on someone with 2 children. That's difficult. So again, I was just like, he's not going to stick to this. It's not going to work out. My faith down the drain. It's not going to work out. But if you had told me back then, or if you had told me when I was in that little bedroom in Oklahoma, that I would be standing in this place now, I would have told you not so. It can't happen. It won't happen. It can't be. It cannot be. But here we are. Tony and I just began to walk a time together, and I'm going to talk about that just a little bit later on. But I just want to say that as we begin to meld our lives together, I began to see the hand of God in our lives. I began to see a true heart in Tony. I began to have faith in what God was trying to work in us and what he wanted to accomplish with us. And I began to see that. So Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is being sure we will get what we hope for. It is being sure of what we cannot see. That's a New Life version, which it felt like to me it explained it a little bit better than the King James Version. But sure that we're going to get what we hope for. When I was in that apartment, I asked God for direction. I asked God for purpose in my life. I asked him, God, I need you in this time in my life. I'm going to get what we hope for, and sure of what I couldn't see when I was sitting in that little bedroom. I couldn't see what was in front of me here. I could not have possibly known. No way could know. But I could trust and have the faith to believe that God was going to do something when I got here. I just didn't know how. I didn't know when. I didn't know what. What it means is trusting God's character and promises regarding the future, even when those promises are not yet physically visible. I couldn't see the future. Tony and I, we had a very challenging marriage. We are both very strong-minded, willed people, and this happens on the regular. I mean, literally. I could tell y'all stuff that is hilarious. If Tony says it's blue, I must say, you're crazy, it's black. That is not blue. Or if he says, let's do this, I'm like, I don't think we should do that. But he said earlier, we eventually come together on the things that matter and the important things. We come together on those things. But the marriage was very tumultuous. But I look back and I know that what I wanted for my children, my faith and what I believed God to do for me and what I was seeking for myself was, I was willing to move a mountain to get there. I wanted that for my kids. I wanted that for my life. I wanted my life to have more purpose and more meaning than what I had at that moment. I wasn't really living a really good life. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to tell you I was a party girl, but I'm just going to tell you I was not seeking the Lord in everything I did, okay? We're pretty transparent around here if you haven't figured that out by now. Even with all of that, and that was big faith, in hindsight, looking back, that was big faith. But when I look back on that, I tell myself, girl, that was just dollar store faith compared to some of the people in the Bible. I mean, look at that faith, and then you really have something to compare it to. And I do. I think about Job. He was such a good man with crappy friends. And a wife who told him, why don't you just go and die? I can't believe that, I mean, my heart can't wrap around that, but when he's sitting there in sackcloth and ashes and boils, and his wife said, why don't you just do us all a favor and go die? But anyway, you can read that in Job 13:15, where he says, sitting there in that, I think about his faith. It's such a faith that God brings me to from time to time, that Job said, though he slay me, I'm going to serve him. My hope will be in him, and I'm going to defend my ways to his face, because he knew he was a righteous man, and God knew he was a righteous man. Or I could talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. A lot of people don't realize it, but they were teenagers. Those boys were teenagers, probably between the age of 15 and 20. And they're standing there in front of King Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, if you don't bow down, I'm about to toss you in that incinerator. And they said, we ain't doing it. If you throw us in, it don't matter. God will save us, and even if he doesn't, we're going to serve him anyway. I can think back that I do believe that there was a point in my life when I made that decision to move here, that there was a point in my life that I feel like I did say, even if I break, I'm going to go. I'm going to go, because I'm never going to know what God could do if I don't step out in faith and move on this. Faith gets built by using it. I told Tony that the other day. I said, you know what? It's one of those use it or lose it things. Faith. It really is. We probably don't think about it in that mindset, but it really is the truth. It's like any other thing. Like we say, if you don't, things with your body, if you don't use it, you lose your strength. If, whatever it is, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's the same thing with your faith. If you never give yourself opportunities to use it, if you never stretch yourself to a place to move in the faith, you probably won't. You probably will not do it. And since it's Mother's Day, I can't skip by without saying that faith is generational. That's a big one to think about for Mother's Day. Faith is generational. Guys, you are modeling for your kids what faith looks like. You're modeling it for them. And they're learning it from you, what faith looks like, whether you have it or whether you don't, or what it looks like. 3 John 4 says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for the truth that they know. All right? And now I'm going to skip on down to Proverbs 22:6 that says, train up a child in the way he should go, teaching him to seek God's wisdom and will for his abilities and talents. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Let me say something about this here. When Tony and I first got married, we went to church all the time. Our house was part of the church at the time. Our house was actually the office for our church. There would be many as 3 small groups going on in our house at the same time. We were in church. We were bringing up our kids in church. Our boys were involved. Our whole family was involved in church. But even then, don't you know, we screwed it up later. But my hope in saying that to you is that, because Tony and I we just screwed up our marriage. But my hope in saying that to you is that even when Tony and I didn't have the faith to be the parents that we needed to be, they still stuck to the Lord. They still held on to the Lord. They still believed that the Lord would do great things for their parents. I tell you now that this will be the best return on investment for your life, to raise up your children in church. Is it going to cost you something? Yes. Yes. All good things do. All good things, you pay a price for good things. And you can just slide by, or you can pay a price to raise up your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Back to Tony and I. I'm going to get back on a better note here. May 1987. Tony and I dated for a year. One day we were just watching a movie, and I got the old infamous proposal. Some of you know it. It's one for the books. Tony said, Vicki, yeah, you want to get married? I said, oh, yeah, sure, we can do that. And he said, well, not this weekend, because I have a fishing trip planned the next. True story. You cannot make that up. It's a true story. Yeah, that's one for the. That one should be hanging on a plaque in Bass Pro Shop somewhere. Yes, he had his priorities in order. You could tell right away. And so about 17 years into our marriage, we went through Death Valley, spiritually speaking. It was as bad can be. It was that bad. 1 John 2 says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life, is not from the Father, but it's from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. That perfectly describes where Tony and I were. We loved the things of the world. We loved all the things. But we were not giving our time and our hearts and our time to the Lord and to things. We drifted. We let other things become more important in our life. And we ended up getting separated. We had a year of separation. During the course of that time, man, I just wanted to crawl under a rock and say, can this be 2 times? What's wrong with me? You know, it's got to be me. It has to be me. What's wrong here? But the Lord pulled me in so tight to Him that it felt like I was going to trip Him every time He walked. It was a time where God, He broke me down. My priorities shifted. Of course they do, right back where they needed to be. My pride got checked. And in the midst of that, I don't know why the Lord wants me to share this, but He does. I dreamed that Tony and I died. We were on a big mountain, and I was driving the car, and we were not saying anything. We were just quiet. And it was like one of those big mountains, like where there's no guardrails, and the road is very narrow. And we're going up, and we're just quiet, and we're just sitting there, and we got to the top. We just drove off, and neither one of us cried, and neither one of us screamed. We didn't say anything. We just went over the cliff. And I said, okay, God, is this how we're going to finish this? We're going to die? But then what the Lord said to me, and it made so much sense, is you do need to die, sis. And he needs to die too. Die to self. Die to all the things that you've let become important in your life. If you want this thing to work out, you're going to have to die, sister. And we did. We did die. You know, when God said to me that I would meet the man in South Carolina, he would have dark hair, he would be a man of God, I'm just thinking a good Christian boy. Because at that point, that sounded pretty good to me. Just a good Christian man. I'll settle for that. I don't need anything beyond that. Ministry was never on our radar. It was never on mine and Tony's radar. Even when the Lord said it, we were like, no, you got us confused with the people next door. It's somebody else. It is not us. We are not pastor material. It is not us. But we felt like that we were never qualified or quantified to do what we do here. But Ephesians 3:20 says, God is able to do much more than we ask or think through his power working in us. Everything, a culmination of everything that we went through, everything we endured, even the stupid, was necessary for us to get to this place here today. And I'm saying that for multiple people in this room. I'm telling you, your stupid is for a reason. But you have to see it for what it is. You have to see it for that, and you have to begin to say, okay, God, what is it that I need to learn in this situation that I'm not going to be able to learn any other way but going through this? Because that's exactly where I was when God put us back together. So fast forward 9 years after God healed our marriage. Tony and I were working on our relationship. We were working on our relationship with each other and our relationship with our children. Everything was broken. Everything that could be broken was broken. Our relationship with God, we were working on all of that. And for 9 years, we worked on that. And then God called us into ministry. So unworthy. so unworthy to be here, but willing to be here. We gave up jobs. You've heard Tony talk about it. We both gave up jobs. I was a human resource director, and Tony was a district manager for a jewelry company. We gave up lucrative jobs because we knew that we had to give back to God for what he had given to us. We had to give it back to him and go into ministry. Our family thought we lost our minds. They said that often. And then fast forward 10 more years in the ministry of New Life Church. I'm sorry, y'all, this is very emotional. Fast forward 10 years in the ministry of New Life. Caitlin, Corinne, would you stand up? Just stand up. I just want people to see you, that's all. There are people here who don't know who you are. These are my daughters. They went through that hell with us. And I tell you, I don't deserve them. But this is my reward. I told you I would come back to that word. This is my reward for the faith of 40 years ago. I had no more than a grain of mustard seed faith to come here. But because I did, I have this. And because they're here helping us lead ministry, y'all can go ahead and come up, the praise team. God's faithful to his promise. And I tell you as well, I look around this room at all the people in this room. I'm grateful for you, and I'm thankful for you, because you're a product of my faith. To go into ministry, mine and Tony's faith, to go into ministry, to be here, to do what we do. You're the product of that, and I'm grateful and thankful for you. God started a good work here at New Life Church, and I have no doubt he's going to be faithful to complete it. I have no doubt that you play a part in it, that you're supposed to be here. If you've ever questioned it, don't. You're supposed to be here, and you're supposed to go bring other people here, because this is a place of healing. This is a place of acceptance. I don't care what your past is. Look at mine. Who am I going to say anything about? Look at me. I can't say anything about anybody. Tony, come on up. Please. Tony and I have never felt that we deserve to be here. And it's only by the grace of God that we are. But I'm going to tell you that there are people in this place today that are struggling even to just believe that God exists and that he cares about you. There are people in the room with that mindset even this day. But I'm going to tell you about a scripture, and then I'm going to let Tony close us out. The scripture tells us that Jesus cast out the demons out of Mary Magdalene. She was demon possessed. She was not a good person. She was a lady of ill repute. But she got to be the first one to witness the empty tomb. And you know why? That's because your past can't cancel out your purpose. I need to say that for somebody else here. Your past cannot cancel out your purpose. Whatever it is that God has for you today, you need to start walking in it. And it may take a little bit of faith for you to do that. But don't sit this one out. I have no regrets. And it was a rocky road. I have no regrets. And I'd do it again to stand by this man and do ministry.